Welcome to Release Readiness Live. I'm Ella Marks. I'm on the admin relations team here at Salesforce, and I'm your host for today's broadcast. We're broadcasting from our home studios all this week to share some new features in the Spring 21 release. After our product team shares the highlights, we'll spend some time taking questions on the air. We'll be monitoring both the Release Readiness Trailblazer community and Twitter, so post your questions as soon as you can and use the hashtag SalesforceLive. I recommend posting your longer, more detailed questions in the community where the conversation can continue after the webcast. If we don't get to your question on the air, we'll be sure to follow up with you within a few days. All of our webcasts will be available on the Salesforce Live website for later viewing. Since we may be covering the roadmap, we'll be making some forward-looking statements, so please make your purchasing decisions based on currently available functionality. Now, let's get started with Work.com and meet our product managers.
Thanks, Ella. I'm Marty Burris. I'm a senior product manager here at Salesforce, and I've been working on Work.com employee experience. And today, with my teammate Subda, we're going to present to you all of our new features. I'm so glad you turned into today's session. So let's just jump into the content.
To say we're in unprecedented times feels like an understatement. I know I never thought I'd live through something like this, especially not in my lifetime. It's evolving every day, and as we start to emerge from COVID-19's crisis, businesses and communities of all sizes are starting to look toward the next phase, reopening and getting back to work. But the question is, how do you do this safely? The answer? It's a journey, but it starts with what you've already been doing all along, taking care of your employees and yourself too. Not just protecting their physical well-being and mental health, but actively seeking to improve your employee experience. When employees are highly engaged with your company's mission and are satisfied in their roles, they will deliver an outstanding customer experience. In fact, 88% of growth leaders said that improved employee experience leads directly to improved customer experience. And almost all of them said that in turn, improving customer experience leads directly to higher revenue growth. How exciting. So that's why we're introducing the new employee experience solutions as part of Work.com. They'll help your organization reimagine employee experience for the new normal. With these solutions, organizations can prioritize safety and well-being with assessments and resources and take action based on employee needs. Organizations can also treat their employees like customers by streamlining work with a connected experience that centralizes everything employees need to do to be productive. We also have knowledge, support, and access to apps and workflows. So here it is, Employee Workspace, the first of many products to GA for Work.com, Employee Experience. The Employee Workspace is the launching point for all the employee experiences in Work.com. It integrates several disconnected experiences into one place with key features like App Launcher, a feature we also use internally at Salesforce, and it also leverages Salesforce CMS, which makes it easier for organizations to communicate timely changes and relevant news. The last thing I'd like to highlight before we get into our demo is a flexible user interface powered by communities. It allows for low-code configuration and brandable experiences. And of course, we wrap this all in a mobile experience. So I've been chatting enough. Let's just switch to a demo. All right, this is a lightly configured employee workspace. The first thing I'd highlight is the workspace navigation bar. Currently, you can view profile and apps pages. We have a fast follow to this release with org chart, as well as some other employee experience features you may have heard of, such as concierge help desk, which will increase these tabs that you see. So let's go to the profile. This is the standard employee profile for all users in the system. We wanted to create something to eliminate the amount of steps it takes to find out information about a colleague. So if you look here, the first card you see is your information card. It's comprised of the data that will come from your HR system of record. In this example, this data comes from Workday. There's a MuleSoft connector also that makes it easy to load that data. Subda will tell you more about that later. The About Me card is pretty straightforward. It allows an employee to include whatever details they want about themselves. Later, this information will be used to power some org charts and search features. The last card I want to explain here is the Work card. The Work card is where an employee can share anything they feel relevant about their work experience. But I really encourage mixed use here. I like to see the roles they've held, but also volunteer experiences. On the other side, you'll see all the key data about a worker. In a virtual environment, it was important to have things like pronouns front and center to help colleagues address each other in meaningful ways. You also see information about working hours and status. Here's a place for your coworkers to know when and where you're working. And in subsequent releases, we'll build on this vision and connect this information out of the box to other key productivity areas. So for fun, let's just change the working hours for our user. We can say he's working from 9 to 4 p.m. instead of from 9 to 3 p.m. And we click save. And now his working hours are updated. And we refresh the page and we can see that now it's available for everyone. All right, the next thing we should do is search for a friend. Now we have found yet another user in the system. As you can see, we don't get to view the Your Information card since we're on another profile. We can't edit any information. So you wouldn't want to do that with someone else's card. However, you can follow them and we can follow them on Chatter. So let's do that now. So next thing I'd like to show you is the pinned apps section of Workspace. This page was designed to bring together all the applications an employee uses. So let me explain this a bit more. At Salesforce, the average employee has access to 127 applications. That's a lot. They're all available in our internal facing version of this, actually. And an admin can connect third-party applications such as Coupa or Zoom, but they can also leverage other internal pages. I've heard many customers say that if they have a community or some other portal, you don't want to delete those, you don't have to. You can just connect it right here. We can also see my user already has a few applications pinned, but let's pin another one like Workday. It allows a user to pin their favorite and most helpful applications. They can change this as much as they want to, and if I pin too many, a modal appears, encouraging me to just pin less applications. So let's go back to the homepage. As you can see, we have Chatter embedded into this community. It's very easy to follow, and currently our user is part of Dads of Acme. They even have an event coming up. He can comment on the event about his excitement or even start a poll to see how other dads will come. On the left-hand side, you see we have the wellness widget. And the wellness widget allows a user to do a couple key things. The first is it allows a user to, for the first time, see their wellness status after taking a survey. And they can also respond to surveys right inside of the workspace. This widget is really secure as well, meaning no matter what page you put it on, how you configure it, only the logged in user will ever see the status. The other thing that I want to mention that's not in today's demo is around shift management. We have a similar shift management widget that allows the user to opt in when they want to come to the office too, and you can configure that for your workspace as well. All right, so now let's switch to the admin view. Our admin view will be in what we call Builder for Communities. It allows the page to be configured however an admin wants. They can change the color, the styles, and the fields of many of the pages. The navigation bar has a few components. So the components are how you drag and drop items onto the screen. There's over 100 out-of-the-box components. If you click on the search aspect for App Exchange, this button here, you can see there's even more options for how you can bring in pages and different things built by partners. The component section is how I embedded the videos that you see and media onto the workspace. You can get very creative here. I'm just a novice. The other section I want to show you is around themes and colors. It allows you to change the look and feel of a page. You can also use this out of the box workspace theme, or in my case, I actually changed the theme just to showcase a different experience. So let's add something in real time. I like this rich content component, so I'm just going to drag it over here. And boom, it's on the page. I can type, link, or add whatever I want. It's a really cool component. When I'm done, I can preview my change, and if I want to publish it to a new community, I can do that here. I can also adjust the audience for who sees this content. So you may want your workforce in Tokyo to see something different than the content the US team sees, but still log into the same environment. The audience functionality allows us to do that and have that type of duality. The last thing I want to show you is how these things look in mobile. With Builder, you can easily see how your community will look on a mobile device by clicking this button. Now the screen dynamically changes, And I can adjust things too. I can look and change things specific to my mobile experience, just like this. It's pretty cool.
All right, well, that completes my section. So now I'm going to hand it over to Subda and she can take it from here.
Thanks, Marty. I'm Suvda Megmar. I'm a product manager for Work.com. I'll start with a brief introduction to employee data model that powers user experiences in Work.com solutions, such as Command Center, Employee Workspace, and Wellness. In this diagram, we show in standard objects that we use to store information about your company and employees. At the center of the employee data model is the employee object that captures essential information about an employee, such as name, employee number, contact information, employment status, and availability. Other objects in blue boxes are internal organization unit, which refers to an organization that an employee belongs to, for example, a department or branch. The organization's hierarchy of business units can be captured through a reference to a parent organization. Employee crisis assessment and crisis objects store information related to a crisis event, such as a COVID-19 pandemic or earthquake, as well as the results of employee wellness surveys that assess workplace readiness. The employee object relates to user object through a lookup field. The relationship between employee and user entities allows us to associate the logged-in Salesforce user to the employee record. I will explain how to configure and link these entities in a little bit when talking about employee user sync feature. The employee object also relates to individual object, which in turn connects employee with privacy and consent information stored in authorization objects shown in the red boxes. And lastly, employee objects relates to case entities via a person account. Now I will talk about employee user sync feature that we released recently. It is available to all Work.com customers. Employee user sync feature helps organizations configure how to associate employee records with user records and cascade employee data updates between these linked records. So who needs this feature? The short answer is customers who want the employees to access Work.com solutions. Let's say Space Shoes Corporation purchases Work.com user licenses so that the employees can collaborate using employee workspace tools. The sysadmin imports employee records from the HR data source, for example, Workday, using MuleSoft connector or data loader tool. Then she creates user accounts for the employees and links these user accounts to corresponding employee records. Now, Space Shoes employee Eddie can log in to the Salesforce community to update his profile information and view colleagues' profiles. Depending on whether your org is an existing Work.com customer or a brand new customer, you have different options for creating and associating user records for employees. I'll go through some customer scenarios with recommended actions and expected results for each scenario. I will demo these scenarios in a little bit. Your org may already have employee records in Salesforce if you've been using Workplace Command Center. The action you can take in this case is go to Employee List View and use the Create User quick action button. The expected result is first, we try to find an existing user that matches the employee record either by email address or employee number. If such a user is found, we link that user record to the employee record. If no user exists for the employee, we create a new user and link the two. If your org is new to Work.com and you're about to import or create employee records, I recommend you enable the Auto Create Users trigger in employee user settings. The expected result is whenever a new employee record is inserted into your org, the system will automatically create and link user records for new employee records. Okay, that's enough talk. Let's get started with a demo. Let's say that I'm the system admin for a company called Space Shoes. I have already imported some employee records into Salesforce. My company has purchased user licenses for Work.com, and I need to create user accounts for these employees so that they can access Employee Workspace app. Here I have a list of employee records. Some of them don't have users associated with them, as shown in the user column. Before using the employee user sync feature, I need to make sure that it is configured correctly for me. So let's head over to Setup. In the Quick Find box, start typing Employee. When you see Employee User Settings, click on it. Voila, we're in the right place. In this settings page, you can define default values for new user records and configure options for automatic user creation and cascading employee changes. Let's set the default values for new user records. There are 2 required and 2 optional fields. The default profile I want to assign to users is Standard Platform User. The character encoding I want to use when the system sends email to users is ISO 88591. It is the most common one. Optionally, I can define a domain name for login users. Normally, the username is the same as the email address of the user, so I can leave this field blank. But if for some reason I want the usernames to have different domain, I can specify that here. Also, optionally, I can assign a default permission set to users. For example, Salesforce Platform Perm Set. I will leave the 2 options at the bottom disabled for now. Click Save, and let's go back to the employee list view. Now that we have configured the defaults of employee user settings, we are ready to create and link users for our employee records. Notice the Create Users button in the top right corner. This button appears in list views to Work.com users who have permissions to create users. We can select a few employee records at a time or select all. Note that the Select All option in list view has a limit of 200 rows. If you have hundreds and thousands of employee records, you may have to do this operation multiple times, or use the data loader tool to perform this operation in one go, with some offline processing. For now, we'll select a few rows, as if you are onboarding a group of employees. Then click the Create Users button. You will get a confirmation dialog that tells you that you're about to create users for 5 employee records. We will first attempt to match to existing users. If no match, we will create a new user record. If you agree to proceed, click the Save button. When the process is over, you should see a success or failure message. As you can see, the user fields of the employee records we have selected now refer to user records. To demonstrate what happens when a user record exists with the same employee email or employee number, let's go to an employee record and remove the link to the user record and save. Create User button is also available at record level when you are viewing individual employee record. Let's click the button. You get a confirmation dialog. Click Save. We get a message saying that we linked an existing user to this employee. No new user was created. Now let's go back to employee user settings. Turn on the Auto Create Users option. What it does is, whenever a new employee record is inserted into your org, The system will automatically create and link user records for new employee records. This way, you don't have to use the Create User button in List View after importing your employee data. That will be already done for you. Next, let's go ahead and turn on the Sync Employee Changes option. There are a few fields such as employee name, employee number, and email that exist both in employee and user records. When turned on, this option treats the employee record as the source of truth and propagates changes made in an employee record to the linked user record. Don't forget to save your changes in this page. Now let's create a new employee record from scratch and see what happens. Go to the employee list view and click the New button. Enter employee information. Make sure to fill in the required fields, such as employee status and worker type. Leave the user field blank, then save. This is the created employee record. You can see that the user field has a link to a user record. Auto Create User option also applies when you are importing your employee data in bulk using MuleSoft connector or data loader tool. Now we'll talk about employee standard report type that we are releasing for all Work.com customers. First, a quick intro to Salesforce report and report type. Report is a list of records, like employees or cases, that meet the criteria you define. You can filter, group, and do math on records. You can also display reports graphically in a chart. Report type is a template that makes creating reports easier. It determines which fields and records are available for use when creating a report. This is based on the relationship between a primary object and its related objects. Currently, in order to create a report on employee records, the user has to first create a custom report type from scratch. Then use their custom report type to create the final report. Soon, with the availability of employee standard report type, it will be much easier and faster to create employee reports using the predefined standard report type. Let me demonstrate how you can do this. To create a report on employee records, go to the Reports tab in your Salesforce portal. Then click on the New Report button, which opens a dialog to select the report type you want to use. Scroll down the list to find Employee Report Type folder. From it, select the Employee Standard Report type. This takes you to the Report Builder widget. In the left-hand panel, you see the fields available for display and calculation. Here you can also configure filters and groupings. I want to build a report that displays a chart on employee wellness status by location. So I'll add a row grouping on location, as well as wellness status field. Also, I want to filter out records with blank location and blank wellness status. Add the chart and run the report. Voila, here's my report. Let me fine-tune the chart setting. I'll select Stacked Bar Chart and place the legend at the bottom. I'll remove the detail rows. And I'm done. You can see the number of employee records are grouped by location, and within each location, there is an aggregated count by wellness status.
That's it for my presentation. Now I'll turn it back to our host, Ella, to take us through our audience questions.
Thank you so much, Suvda, and thank you to all of the folks out there who are joining us today. If you haven't asked your question yet, you can still post your questions for today's broadcast. Go to the Release Readiness Trailblazer community or on Twitter and use the hashtag Salesforce Live. Now, before we dive into our questions, we have an additional product expert who is here with us for the Q&A. So Alessandro, I'll pass it over to you to give a quick intro.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alessandro. I'm a Senior Director of Product Management on Work.com, responsible for the employee experience, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Ella.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. All right, let's dive into these great questions. Marty, let's start with some questions for you. The first question that I have here is, how does Workspace work with the rest of Work.com?
That is a great question. It plays quite a few roles, but for the initial launch of Work.com, so think the COVID specific things like Command Center and all of those pieces, shift management, wellness. Command Center was meant to be for executives. So that's kind of the executive dashboard. Think of the Workspace as for everyone else, right? For all employees, including those executives too. The other piece that you have in there is there's a few connections. So there are components that you can drag and drop in. For instance, for wellness, so your employees can see their wellness status. That's a new attribute. You can also drag in the shift management piece so your employees can do shift management. So think about it wrapping in all those employee experiences that we introduced the first time into one unique, distinct place.
Great. Thank you. My next question for you is around intranet. So I already have an intranet. Do I need this?
Of course you do. but like rationally thinking about it, there's a couple options, right? I think one thing that's really unique about what we're doing is we're not looking to like rip and replace things. So if you have something that works, just integrate it. One of the things, that's something we do a lot in Salesforce. So in the what we call the app launcher feature, you can connect to any existing page, any existing application you use. So if you have, let's say, an intranet that has a lot of your knowledge articles, or there's some specific things you want to have there, you can link it to the Workspace, and that can be one section. And then you can have your Workspace that kind of shows maybe news, events, and all the other cool features that'll be coming over the next couple of releases.
I love that approach. So integration and trying to make that experience a little bit better. Question around localization. So can content in Workspace be localized?
That is like the number one question for Workspace, and the answer is yes. So you can localize it. I can't remember how many languages you put it in, but there's a lot. And the other big question we get to is around like right to left and left to right, and it's compatible with both. I completely localize that way.
Great. Does Workspace have to be in a separate org?
Yes, but it can be in whatever org. If you were initial Work.com customer, it can be in whatever org you did your initial Work.com implementation into. If you are a net new customer, check with your AE on the fine-tuned details. For instance, if you already have an HR org or something like that. But generally speaking, the rule of thumb is it needs to be separated for data privacy and compliance reasons.
Got it. Thank you. And my final question for you in this round is, how can I get access to Employee Workspace?
Yeah, you can get access a few different ways. So if you are an existing Work.com customer, you actually already have access to it. And you just need to install the package into your sandbox. And then if you are a potential customer who's thinking about getting Workspace, probably just need to call your AE and get started.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. We will move on to questions here for Suvda. Suvda, thanks for joining us today. The first question I have is, who can see create user buttons?
If you remember from my demo, create user button is viewable in employee list view, and that button is visible only to admin who have permissions to create users. So other users would not be able to see that. So that way it's secure, and only people who need to get access to that button will see it.
Great. How are usernames generated? How is the domain name used in employee user settings?
Okay, so when provisioning users for employee records, we use the email address in the employee record as the username. There can be sometimes cases that when you provision a user for an employee record, that user with the same email address already exists, with the same username already exists, then you will get an error and you will be able to fix that, perhaps changing the email address for the employee.
Great. You got my next question was going to be, what if there's an existing user with a matching email? So thank you. Next question I have for you is, what fields are synced between employee and user records?
So there are 5 fields that exist both in the user record and employee records, and we keep them in sync. So these are employee's first name, middle name, last name, employee number, and email address. So if any one of these fields changes and updates are made in employee record, then we propagate that change to the corresponding fields in the user record.
Thank you, Suvda. This is just a reminder for our folks out there. You can keep asking your questions using that hashtag Salesforce Live. So with that, Suvda, I'll go to my last question for you for now. What if I have thousands of employees for whom I need to create users? What's the most efficient way to do this?
There are a number of ways to do that. The most basic and easiest method is to go to employees list view and use the create user button. But if you have, like you say, thousands and thousands of records, it may require multiple rounds because there is a limit of 200 rows that you can select in employee list view, right? So in that case, you can use the data loader tool with some offline processing to provision users for all of your employees in one go. So you can export your employee records through data loader, and then create user records for these records and upload them back into Salesforce. And then there is also another way, actually, which is to use MuleSoft connector, right? So with the MuleSoft connector, if you turn on the auto create user setting, then when you import in your employee records in one go, like in bulk, then users will be automatically provisioned for the employee records.
Great, thank you. It's helpful to know all of those different workarounds, especially if you're, a larger company or you need to create all these users. So, thank you so much. I think we have one last question here for Alessandro. Can you talk about any enhancements to the Work.com command center that you showed on the last Release Readiness Live?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I do apologize if you're hearing background noise. Some construction work seems to have just started. Like many of you, I assume I am working from home. But yeah, that's a great question. So a quick refresher. The command center is your single pane of glass for getting your people back to the physical workplace safely and for managing the complexities of your reopening efforts. So yes, the answer is we are continuing to make improvements and enhancements to Work.com Command Center. Just to name a couple of highlights from the latest release of Command Center, we've improved the ability to manage location hierarchies directly in Command Center. We've also added the ability to filter the Command Center insights and actions at any level of the location hierarchy. So that could be building, city, state, region, whatever is most appropriate to that use case. We've also enhanced the capabilities around scheduling employee wellness checks, and we've incorporated that employee wellness check experience for the end employees into the employee workspace that Marty presented just a few minutes earlier. If you'd like to learn more about these enhancements, it's all covered in detail in our release notes.
Awesome. Thank you, Alessandro. And I guess my final question for both Suvda and Marty, along with the lines of what Alessandro just mentioned, some resources, where would you direct folks that want to learn more after today's broadcast?
I'd probably just send them right to the work.com website. Everything's there. You can get access to not only the things that we built, but the things that have come from all our sister teams too, who built things for work.com.
Yeah, same here. So yeah, work.com help documents provide information on how to import the employee records and how to provision users for them. And any other information that's related to employee data model is there.
Great. Thank you. I know folks are always eager to find out where they can access that information. So with that, it looks like we've reached the end of our Q&A in Twitter and in the Trailblazer community. So thank you to everybody for joining us. We hope you enjoyed these innovations and hearing these questions as much as we did today. If you do have an additional question and you post it in the community or on Twitter, we'll try and follow up with you in the next few days. Just a reminder that our webcasts are available on the Salesforce Live website for later viewing. And we'll be here all week. So please come back and join us again for the next sessions. Tomorrow, we'll be sharing the Experience Cloud and Commerce Cloud highlights from the Spring 21 release. And I can't wait to hear how you're continuing to use new features to innovate. So let's keep the conversation going in the Release Readiness community, where all of our Trailblazers meet to be release ready. So thank you so much, everyone. And we'll see you next time on Release Readiness Live.